Hi and welcome again, everyone. Thanks so much for being here. A couple of words to us. We are volunteer run. So if you have any ideas for a talk, if you want to be a speaker or you have anyone you would love to hear a talk from, please feel free to reach out to us anytime. We have a website, which Lara and Tam will post in the chat so you guys can access it. That should give you our next dates. It could also give you, our YouTube link to our past events. And you'll also find a sponsoring page on there. So it's a virtual Ko-Fi page where you can basically just buy us a coffee, and any dollar, any coffee is very greatly appreciated. Yeah, so quick word about the organizational part of things. Please save all your questions for the end, meaning you can already post them whenever they pop up into your head. Just post them into our chat that we've got here. Lara, Tam, and I will be collecting all these questions of yours that you post in the chat, and then we'll throw them back at Maria at the end. So you'll have kind of like an interactive session. If you'd like to speak up, of course, please do speak up at the end. If you don't have to. We'll collect the questions and yeah, throw them at you, Maria. All right, and all about today. So today we get to hear a talk about, key takeaways about being a sole UX writer. So Maria will be telling us about what the barriers are as being a sole UX writer in a company. And she has an extensive background in, like building up UX writing processes in various startups. And she comes from a background, correct me if I'm wrong, Maria, but you have a background in communications, coming from journalism and marketing, as well as content strategy and design. So you're kind of bringing all this together in this talk today on how to navigate the world as a sole UX writer. And I think with that, I've said it all, and I will hand over the mic to you, Maria. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for inviting me. Let me please share my screen, make it easier. Yeah. Hi everyone, good evening. Thank you all for joining us here. Special thanks to the organizers for sure. And it's a pleasure for me to be here and share with you some of these takeaways that I took from being a solo UX writer in some opportunities. So let me give you some context about my experience and introduce myself. I'm Maria. I have been working in communications and market fields in various companies in various sizes of various markets. And in some of these experiences, I was mixing my role and responsibilities a little bit. So for example, sometimes I was working as a marketer and in small startups and doing events, strategy marketing, copywriting, but also working together to the product teams, thinking about the communications for users. So a little bit of UX writing. And for example, 12 years ago, I was in a digital marketing agency as a web writer and working with designers and developers, building websites, e-commerce, blogs, and in my case, thinking about the content for user experiences. So it was pretty similar my routine currently, but for sure you didn't have this robust subject as you have nowadays. And yeah, and I can say just in my last 5 years, I could put my focus just on UX writing and content design. And in most of this experience, I was a solo UX writing. So just in my previous experience, I had a pair, and you could building the content design team together from the scratch. But now, currently, I'm working at OLX Brasil. I don't know if you know, because there is also OLX Group, which is in some countries in Europe. And at least in Brazil, we are the biggest marketplace and classified platform, helping people to sell and buy stuff in various categories, either from autos to real estate, or from electronics to furniture and so on, a lot of things. It's a really huge company in Brazil, over 5,000 employees. And I am in the design team right now with 40 colleagues, different designers, specialists, and I am again the only UX writer and the first one at this company. So as you can guess, maybe I am Brazilian, but as Fiona said, I am based here in Switzerland, in Baden, and working remotely for these companies in Brazil. So now you know me a little bit, let me know you too. You can share here on the chat if you are working in UX writing or content design, if have you been in some of these sole position, and that's it. And just to start here, yeah, my intention is to follow this flow in our conversation today and share my takeaways from the moment we start in these companies as the sole UX writer and try to get their context. And then you try to find some allies and improve the team UX writing skills. And then you start to be part of their process and start to think and design our future. So that's the flow that I'm going to follow. Starting from the beginning, when you try to understand the context of the company, maybe it's not for UX writer. It's normal when you start in a company, you try to get their context, understand their moment, their main objectives, their main projects, and try to get more information about the audience, the competitors, and so on. And I was doing that through these main techniques, maybe one-on-one meetings or participating on the team rituals, the team meetings, and reading some documentation that they already have done. And yeah, that was the way I normally get this context. But in my last experiences, I try to do it in a more organized way. So maybe it's my first takeaway here. I was running meta research. I'm using this term, but this is a term for research teams when they do a research about the research. So they try to understand their methodologies and this kind of thing. And in this case, it's like a research inside of UX writing, because okay, in some of this experience, I was the only one or the first expert in UX writing, but in some way, the UX writing was running at that company. Someone was defining the UI copy or doing some testings, content testings. So this research is to understand it in a more structured way. So normally I try to talk to my main stakeholders. Yeah, all of this can change, depends on the company size, the company structure. But normally I try to find these people that are responsible for content designing, the product marketer, the product managers, the software engineers, people in marketing, in branding, marketing performance, or social media, and people in customer experience, in support team, and also the UX researchers. And from these conversations, normally I can find this kind of information, this main finding here. For example, who is defining the UI copy and what their main difficulties in this process, or the time they use to expand in these tasks, their skills and confidence levels to do it. And for example, in some opportunities, I could realize that product designers were doing that, or defining the UI copy, and normally their confidence level is not so high. So in a range between 1 for low confidence and 5 for high confidence, normally I found 2, they choose 2 for their confidence, and then I try to understand how where and how they find the support to do it, to define the UI copy or to define the UX copy in general, and with who they are talking about, the people, and what kind of material they use to consult. And then I can also talk about their main pain points they already see in the UX copy in general, even when they don't know this term. But in general, the communications in general, what kind of topics is the main pain point for them. And all this information is really helpful for me in this very beginning at the company as the sole one, because I can have this big picture about the UX writing, even without UX writing department. And then this information is also helpful for my next point, that is finding allies. So from this conversation, I can recognize some allies between them, or they can introduce me to another people that is interested about it. And normally I have these 4 profiles here. Again, in different companies with different structure, this can change for sure. You can share as well if you have found different profiles or different people inside of these profiles. But for me, the first one is people who is already defining the UI copy, for example. As I mentioned, sometimes they are product designers, but sometimes they could be product managers, product market managers, or CEOs in small companies. And they are natural allies, maybe I can say it this way, because they also see us as good allies. So they are in trouble sometimes doing these tasks. So we are really good allies. And as the solo one especially, it's impossible to work alone. Like it's a lot of things to do, even in small companies. So you need them, you need all these allies, and they are also expecting something from us. And the second profile is people who had this big picture about the communication in general, and sometimes they are not just in product teams, sometimes they are in marketing teams. I have found them also in service design, because they have this user journey mapped, and then you can find the main pain point, the main touch points with the clients or with the users. Also people in marketing, CRM, they are good allies here, because they also have this information about the main touch points most of the time. And also copywriters in these teams, or even CEOs again, because sometimes they have this mapped in their minds, and then you can get this information from them, and this information can be really helpful for us. Also, another profile, it's people who know the user behavior. And sometimes they are in UX researchers team, because they have the results of the researchers, and also because they are interviewing people all the time, so they know how is their behavior, like the language they use. The same for people in customer experience department, or support, or community managers. And other good ally in this aspect is data scientists, because they have data about the behavior in general. So yeah, it's for UX writers, it's like gold. And last but not least, we have people who has already some good skills about UX writing, or they are interested in this subject, because they can bring us fresh air, and in this sole position they can be like a partner and share some work, like some tasks, collaborate with us. Sometimes in one opportunity, for example, we had champions in another teams who was people that have this interest about UX writing, and they also help in this next topic, that is our necessary evil, that is still is advocate for UX writing. I don't know you, but for me, sometimes it's a little bit tiring, like repeat how important UX writing is, or the impact you can bring to the company, or convince people about this relevance. So yeah, sometimes it's a little bit boring for me, but it's still really necessary. There is no way. It's still a really relatively new position field in the market. So you need to promote it in some way to give us more visibility, and then make it easier to prioritize our projects and see people adopting our best practices, implementing our improvements. So still necessary advocate for UX writing. And these allies can also help us with this task. But in general, I see these four pillars in this practicing of advocate for UX writing, and also to see our best practice implemented on the products. And the first pillar is collaboration that I have spoke about, like this collaboration between our allies, and also with our teams and the teams in this process. And then I'm going to talk more in detail about these other three ones, starting from culture and governance. That is, for me, the most important one when you talk about to improve the team knowledge or skills. And because when you have this UX writing in their culture, it's easier to prioritize and to see them implementing our best practices. And I have been doing it through this kind of thing: talks or workshops, mentorship, consultancy. And here I have these examples about sorry, it's in Portuguese. Most of my samples are in Portuguese, but it means like the UX writing week. And during this week at the company, we had a lot of workshops and talks about it, and people from every department of the company was participating. And also I had here some knowledge pills, like I choose the main channels of the company to share some short information that is about UX writing in general. So here I have one example about do's and don'ts, and here before and after, and here one result of one A/B test. And yeah, just spread this kind of information. It's easier to get into this culture of the company. And taking back to the governance, that I think it's really linked, two of them, because the culture is more about the spread the information, and then the governance is like our base. So it's difficult to talk about governance without thinking about guidelines. So maybe it's the first thing that come up in our minds when you talk about governance in UX writing. And here I have another takeaway, maybe, because, or advice, that is, don't wait for the perfect guideline, the perfect content style guide, because we have a lot of inspiring style guides in the market in general, and sometimes you try to do the complete one with all the information, and as the solo UX writing, that is not so easy to have time to do it in the perfect way. So I was trying to do it in an initial way, maybe. And also the content style guide are living documentation. So it's we can also improve, we can always improve it, like daily. And here you can see the two first examples was style guides that I start in the Google Slides, just one slide with short information about the UX writing principles, about tone and voice, and some style guides that we already have done in these companies, just to organize this information. And here I have one example in the company where I am currently. And in this case, I could use paid tool and do it in a more fancy way, like on a website. People can navigate normally from in this tool, and it's easy, but it's still improving every day because I don't have time to do it in a complete way. I don't know if there is a complete way because it's always changing and improving. And and here in the style guide, I used to add these templates. The templates are really helpful in this beginning, as I shared with you. Normally, the people defining the UI copy, they are not so confident, and then these templates can help them to start, just to know, oh, how can I start this email or this message here, this error message. So giving them some templates is a way to help them to start. And also this part about measurement, for me, it's one of the most important things, is governance, and you can do it through the content testing, content research in general, and teach people to do it as well, or how to follow these results. And you can use these results or these discoveries in our content style guide as well. Yeah, just to improve it time by time. And this measurement is also linked with our next topic, that is being part of the process. This is really linked with these metrics. For me, you can mix our measurements, measure our content success, content quality, and use it as a metric as well, or link with our metric of the company in this whole gear of this machine here that is the company. And it is linked with the implementation part. For me, the implementation is like the conception, the final conception of our work, because sometimes we have like all the process are running in a good way, and you have a good content style guide, and you are running a lot of content testing, content researching, but you cannot see so easily our improvements, our projects implemented and effectively impacting the content, the user experience. So that's our main objective. And sometimes you are doing a lot of things, but you cannot prioritize our demands, our projects, to see it implemented on user experiences. So for me, this is the final conception of our work. And when you have our own process really clear, and you can share it with the company, it's easier to see our implementations and then feed our metrics as well. And I'm going to share one way that I found to fit my own process in the process running at the company. And here I have another takeaway, that is take care about when you are the solo UX writer. Sometimes you have your individual process, your favorite process, but sometimes this process doesn't fit really well with the company's process in general. So it's really important to make sure that you can fit it on the company's process. And it's one of these cases. Yeah, maybe you have seen this kind of framework here. It's just the diamond they use, the double diamond they use in the design or product process in general. It's in Portuguese, but you can translate easily, like from the discovery to the implementation and then the follow. And I use the same framework they use it at the company, just making clear the responsibilities and techniques UX writing could use in this process. So in each part of the process, you can see UX writing doing different things and having different responsibilities and techniques, and it make it easier for us at that time, because sometimes they were just involving us just in the reviewing part of the process, and yeah, that's not so effective for UX writing. So with this framework, we could make easier to them to understand that the perfect moment to involve us is in the beginning of the process. So yeah, and then they could see how we could add value in their process in each part of the process. Yeah, that's it. And then once we have this process running really well, and we have our culture initiatives, and you have the governance about the user quality and user and content success, and we can start to think about the future. And for me, this part of have this ongoing process running in a really good way, planning, implementing, and tracking all our initiatives, our projects in general, it's like the main point to think about the future, because once you have it running in a good way, you can plan the next step in a better way. And then you can start to think about the role and responsibilities in general. And this role and responsibilities can normally change from the moment we will start as a solo UX writer, because people, you can understand how it's running and change our projects, and sometimes prioritize in a different way the initiatives we are involved with. So we change this role and responsibilities, and it's good to have it clear for us and for our colleagues in general, our teams. And it brings us to the next topic, that is team growth, because sometimes doing this exercise of thinking about whole responsibilities, you can see, in my case, most of the time, just one person is not enough to take care about the whole UX writing in the company, even in small companies. So it's easier when you have all of this clear to think about how to grow the team. And sometimes you can grow thinking about some speciality. So, in this situation, I need someone that is expert in content testing or localization or something else. And sometimes it's based on the structure of the company. So we can see that we need someone for each tribe or each vertical of the company or each squad, and that's it. You can design this feature in a better way. So that's it. Let's make it a conversation. So you can reach out to me on LinkedIn, or just open your mic or share your questions.
Well, first of all, thank you so much, Maria. I think I speak for everyone when I say that was such a great session. Really, I think you mentioned so many points that kind of just lit a metaphorical little light bulb on the top of my head. So thank you so much for all of your insights there. And we have gotten quite a few questions, so I'm just going to start to pick a couple of them out and ask them to you. If anyone within who's here wants to speak up themselves, feel free to do so. If not, I'll just keep on asking the questions, asking away. So I think one of the questions that came up at the beginning of the talk, when you mentioned, finding allies within a company. Someone asked, sort of provocatively, like who's not an ally within within the company, right? Because you mentioned designers, you mentioned the CEO, even you mentioned data scientists. Do you have anyone who you think probably not an ally?
Yeah, that's a good question. I never thought in this from this perspective. So now I cannot find anyone that is not one ally. Maybe these are the potential allies, like who can help us in the hands-on, like in the tasks, in the daily work.
Yeah, so people that just aren't quite as hands-on within the product creation, I guess, or like creation of features. Okay, cool. Yeah. Let me just see. I have a question here regarding collaboration. You also mentioned that you have a background, right, in like marketing and journalism. So Pedro asked, from a language consistency perspective, how do you think product and marketing collaboration should look like or looks like? Could you share any insights or recommendations there?
Yeah, maybe they are the first ones that I reach out when I enter in some companies, because people sometimes make some confusion about both positions, more with copywriters. So yeah, the relationship is always in a limit. So I tried to have them really close. So I try to set up some syncing meetings with them, and then you can share our knowledge and our challenge in some way, and make sure that the tone of voice that we share is still working in both sides, and we are able to spread this information together to the whole team. So yeah, I try to have them really close to me. I don't know if I answered the question, or yeah, that's it.
So do you think like the product and marketing works together towards a common goal, or do they kind of also, do the goals of marketing and product also clash?
Have like different goals and different techniques, but in general, we need to work together, mainly in this topic of have the same voice at keep the voice of the company through the whole journey of the users. So in general, they have different techniques and goals, but in specifically, but in general, we have the same one.
So maybe also like this next question kind of takes that question a bit further. You also mentioned just now in your answer in the collaboration between product and marketing guidelines, right? And so one of our listeners here asked, what would your approach be for a company-wide glossary? So to make sure that all employees use the same terms and communication in like an enterprise company. Do you have a specific approach there, or like some experience?
Yeah, this meta research was also helpful for that, because when I asked people about their main pain points they saw in the communication, was easy to identify some of these words sometimes, and in some opportunities the glossaries was really necessary from the first beginning, and some others no, was not, because they didn't have this problem with some terms. So yeah, it depends of the company. And in one of them, for example, I had to do this closer just from the beginning, and then normally we try to do it in a collaborative way as well. So we shared in a more technical way, but we shared a spreadsheet, and then we could use our terms there, and each department, for example, put their understanding about this term, and then you could discuss about it and define how you could use this term when you talk to the customers or the users in general.
I think we have a raised hand. You're called Zoom Benutzer here on my screen, so feel free to just jump in.
Oh, I'm sorry. I hope my camera is working. I'm the one joining from Greece right now, so I hope I'm not kicked out by the shitty hotel Wi-Fi. I'm gonna try. So this question was from me. Thank you so much, Maria, for answering about the glossary. I'm currently in this situation in a big Swiss enterprise company, and I'm like the solo, some kind of UX writer person. So great talk, great topic for me. And I wanted to just go a bit further in this glossary because this is something I'm dealing around currently. And I wanted to ask you, we also have, of course, the multi-language approach in Switzerland with Italian, German, French, of course. And you said something about a spreadsheet. So what was your way to like share with all the people from all the company? Where did you track the glossary? Was there like, is it a tool or like just like a simple Confluence page or spreadsheet, like, or how did you do that? How did you set it up?
Yeah, the tools I have used both like spreadsheets itself and Confluence as well in a table. So first, in the first moment, we try to ask everyone to put their information about these terms. So each department put their understanding about each term, and then I run a lot of dynamics to discuss about this term itself one by one, and then we agreed with a definition in the end together. Each one bring your perspective, and then with our help, they try to help, we could define the definition about these terms and use it in a agreed way with the users. The tools, I think it's not the most important thing. Like you can use it in the way that works better in the company. Like with a spreadsheet, in my case, spreadsheet was easier because all the teams had access to it. And Confluence, sometimes it's easier to put the final result.
Right. Thank you. If I can ask one more question, then I give free. You mentioned that again, like having the discussion. So this is like a huge thing, of course, in a big company because everybody knows how to do it better. Did you also do research about like terms and stuff to find out what works better, or did you just decide and you made the approach that we're gonna do it now and let's see who is gonna speak up in the end, or how did you do that?
In some cases, the content testing was necessary just to have more clear way to define it. So I run it like in some different opportunities. I run like highlighting testing, and another one I close testing, and then it make it easier to define these terms in the end. Yeah. Sometimes it's necessary. Sometimes you can agree internally.
Okay, gonna find the right balance there, right mix probably. Thank you so much.
A lot of collaboration. I'm hearing a lot of talking to people and
Yes.
finding a. Oh, I see another hand raised. Feel free to just jump in.
Yeah, maybe going a bit more in depth on that topic. For example, about error messages. So there's like a bunch of them, and I recently got a log file from my developers, and I saw that we have about 150 different error messages, maybe 20 of which are formulated in the right way, and the rest is kind of like wrong. And it seems a bit tedious to really write the whole sentences down, like 150 different ways of interpreting the same style of language. And I wonder, how do you define these rules? Shall I really write them down atomic, sentence by sentence, and just give people a huge collection of these sentences? Or should I start formulating more like rules, how to build them themselves? Saying that our developers are not, they're nearshore, and so they don't speak the language. So I guess there's no other way than just really writing every single sentence. But it seems a bit tedious.
Yeah, I am right now in a project about romancers, and it's a big challenge for sure. I even didn't have this information you have, like how many you will have. So I have no perfect answer here. I'm working on that exactly in this moment. So in this moment, I am running also some dynamics with James to understand the main messages, the main patterns we have at the company. And my intention is like pick some projects, some flows, some parts of the experience, and use it as samples, as specifications on my content style guide to help people to repeat it in different situations. But I am so sure that I won't be able to cover all the error messages alone. So I'm just trying to start it, but it's not easy.
Maybe maybe another question on this. So would you prefer to start like thinking about the principles first? I guess you'd have to start with the principles, and then you make some examples, and then people have to interpret them themselves, right? So in the end, it will maybe not be 100% consistent, but at least it's in the same ballpark of language style. Because sometimes I wonder, do we say, please contact the administrator, or is it contact the administrator, please? You can get, you can get a bit too detailed, maybe.
Yeah, and I don't know if you have like a design system, because sometimes design system can help us in this task. For example, now I'm working together to design system specialist, because we are defining also the type of component you can use for each type of error message. So yeah, sometimes they can help us because they already can give people the developers and the designers some tips to do it from the moment they took these components.
Yes, I'm also adding these things to my component library directly. So there's not another place for the documentation. It sits within the same file. That's also a thing. The proximity is respected.
We just got a comment in the chat kind of adding to the conversation. Margaret saying like grouping the error messages by topic has helped for her. Like sometimes there's repetition, right? And then you can copy and paste and make necessary edits from there. So kind of just creating, I don't know, groups or categorizations, yeah, is another tip from the group. I think we have 2 more raised hands, and I feel like Learner, you.
This is odd. Sorry, it was my surname.
Oh, sorry.
Because it's because of Zoom, you know.
True.
I was too disciplined. No, I would like to react, you know, regarding the error messages, because I'm currently working with a designer on a huge list of error message. And we're trying to categorize the error message, you know, according to, well, whether it's due to a technical error or not. And you can start and segment your error messages, and then maybe find, you know, a pattern. So for example, you know, for this kind of message, you will have a title, or not a title, a body. Do you have a primary action button or not? And you know, once you think about it, then you see other messages, and you can, you know, try to categorize them, and you will see that you've already done part of the work. So we're trying, you know, to use patterns. I don't know if it helps, but I have the feeling that it does help.
I think so as well. Like, yeah, it's the same. I'm trying to do, like, find these categories and find the best practice you can use for each kind of them, and which kind of components you can use and each kind of situation. Yeah, I think the same way.
I agree. I think it's a topic we all struggle with, like these style guides, right? And how to make it work for everyone in the company and various authors. Yes. I think we have one more raised hand. Feel free to jump in.
Hi, Maria. Hi, everyone. So yes, you touched on, working with the design system specialist, and I'd like you to like talk more about that because that's something, I'm interested in. So I've worked on a content style guide, I'm just currently, and I know, to be honest, I've worked on the style guide. I know that it's like I did extensive work, voice and tone, everything. And I know that it's just going to be me that's going to use it because it seems like I just created, I presented to the company, but it seems like that's the voice and tone and everything. Everyone's like, oh, great, that's awesome. But, I'm still the one that's still going to work on it. But again, I'm the only one and there are a lot of things to do, right? So I want to understand how, for example, your labels, how you're able to just make sure that, some of these reusable components, you're able to work with the design system and just basically your work in that design system, space, how you're able to, help to make sure content is reusable across, the company.
Yeah, I think it's always the same problem, like how can you incentivize people to really use our content style guide? Because sometimes it seems like it's just us following our own style guide. So yeah, approximate. So the design system was one trial to make it easier to people to access our guidance. So at least for these components, have some guidance in the moment they are using that. That was the main reason that I have this working together to the design and the design system. And now we are designing a new project about to have the labels separated in the components. So yeah, I'm trying to prioritize it, but it's not so easy because of developers, sprints and this kind of thing. But the idea is to have the label separated, and then you can bring some tips or some templates in the labels. Like for designers, they can find these tips on Figma easily. Like they can choose, like bring some CTA, and then they can see the CTAs that we use, the pattern you use for CTAs, for positive CTAs or negative CTAs, and then they can use it easily with this label separated from the components itself. It's just try different things in different moments in different companies, and I think there is no perfect answer for this question. So sorry.
I like that answer though, Maria. You're basically saying to like be relevant, also like taking like the employees as your users as well, right? And like doing research on how they would need to use the style guide, and then kind of catering to their needs. I like that take on how to build up a content design system.
I think something that is, so if I can add what I have from being a UX designer, is like there's the same problem when you do like design guidelines or style guides and stuff to make people work with it, is that it's very important that you share your work, that you tell people about it. It's like really telling what you're doing so they're going to see it, and you bring them on your side. This is what Maria said before, probably make them your allies, also people that haven't been your allies before, or that maybe they don't work in the same team. But when people know about what you're doing and why you're doing it, they're much more likely to also adapt to what you give to them. This is what I experienced so far a bit. It helps telling people about especially in a field like UX.
You dropped out quick. But I think we got you. You got your point. Yeah, advocating. I think this leads up to actually another question about advocating for UX writing, Maria, that I have here on my list. So Pedro asked, if you have any tips for folks who are constantly being asked for more superficial editing work instead of full stack UX writing or content design. And like, how would you, this kind of goes into what you mentioned, Elena, right? Like, how would you convince the team that you can do so much more than just editing and yeah, quick superficial writing?
I know what you mean, like talk about the inclusive language and you just can talk about it all the time. Like it's not so, it's important, but sometimes people just relate UX writing with inclusive language, or just as I mentioned in the process, they just involve us in the reviewing part of the process. Yeah, and that's it's a trouble. That's the tiring part of advocate for UX writing, but this is still our necessary evil. Like you need to advocate, and then I think like the culture part and the guidance, the governance part, it's important for that. And yeah, there is no way. You need to repeat again and again how important UX writing is, or how it can impact the companies and the process we are using. I didn't find any other way. If you find, please share it.
It's slow, hard work, isn't it?
Yeah.
All right. I'll ask one more question, and I think after that we would close the Q&A session for now. But feel free to reach out to any of us, to Maria as well on LinkedIn. But here's one last question coming from Margaret. She's asking, how would you work with stakeholders who think, no one reads and who want to eliminate copy from designs?
Yeah, I try to be like empathizing with them, like saying, okay, I can understand, but like the user are not reading because our content is not so good, or the opposite. So I always bring this provocative question and try to prove from the measurements and metrics we are using for us. But yeah, I still listen this same question, the same argument.
Yeah, it's a topic that pops up again and again, isn't it? Cool. Well, I think with that, we would be ending this official part of the meetup. So all that's left to say for me is thank you so much, Maria, for your time and all your effort and all your insights. I mean, personally, I had a couple of takeaways that I could take from today. I have a list next to me here. Yeah, and everyone else, thank you so much for joining. If you'd like to stay, we do usually organize a quick speed networking session afterwards. So we'll send you out into breakout rooms, and you can actually, obviously without recording it, and you can actually get to know each other with a face and a camera on. But no pressure to stay if you need to be somewhere else. So yeah, if you'd like to stay, please do. If not, feel free to connect on LinkedIn. We have a group there. Lara, Tam, Maria, and I are also all on LinkedIn. And yeah, we also have a website if you ever want to join in on our next session, which would be in January. Thank you for being here. And warm thank you to you again, Maria.